And we are now live to YouTube. Go ahead, Councilor Carpenter.
Thank you. Welcome to the Finance Committee meeting. Attendance has been noted by the clerk. I just want to go over the rules of procedure. I'd like to just remind committee and our viewing public of a few procedural rules for our virtual meetings in operating as efficiently as possible. All members will be muted for the meeting to reduce feedback. All web cameras for committee meetings shall be turned on to ensure that and track quorum. Staff will be requested to join the video meeting should the need be to answer any questions from members of this committee. Any member of the committee should indicate they wish to speak by pressing the raise hand button on the participant list screen, and we're all used to that. Clerk staff will lower the hand when you have been recognized by myself for your speaking opportunity. In the event of a connection or service interruption occurs that affects quorum of this committee of the whole, we will recess the meeting for up to 15 minutes to regain quorum. If quorum is not achieved, the meeting will then be adjourned. All members of the committee participating via online video conference will vote using eScribe, and the clerk will announce the vote results. Members of the public.
Mr. Chair, can I make a request?
Sure.
We're getting a lot of muffling from your mic. Can you move it a little bit further away from your mouth?
How's that? Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Members of the public who register as delegates are now able to take part electronically via webcam or via telephone for the meetings. All rules for delegation of the city procedural bylaw continue to apply. Is there any members of the committee that declare any pecuniary interest or conflict for appearing on this agenda? I see none. Okay, thank you. I'd like to note that 5.1 is an external audit annual independence letter and engagement letter and audit plan has been automatically separated as a representative from Millard Professional Accountants will be joining us to provide an overview of this item. Members of the committee, are there any additional items for consideration or consent that you wish to separate for discussion purposes? I see none. Oh, Councilor Martin.
Yeah, 5.1.3. Promissory notes for Brantford Power and Hydro.
Okay, thank you. I see no others. Okay, can I get a mover and a second for the items of consideration consent items for separate? Councilor Vanderstelt and Mayor Davis. Thank you. With no other further separation, I will now call the vote on all items for consideration and consent items that were not separated for discussion purposes. Oh, moved by Mayor Davis, sorry.
It's electronic.
Yeah, I voted on screen, gentlemen.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't have the electronic. Yes.
Oh, okay. So I got, okay, thank you. So the scribe vote now is there.
Sorry, Mayor Davis, you wanted to vote in the affirmative?
Yeah, I'll have to get in. You won't need to do that next one. Just vote yes, please. Sorry.
And separation of items for consideration consent for discussion purposes. The vote has carried on a unanimous vote. Those voting in favor, Mayor Davis, Councilor Vanderstelt, Councilor Martin, Councilor Utley, and Councilor Carpenter. And the items subject to the vote are as follows. So item 5.1.2, Brantford Police Services Board requests to carry forward 2020 surplus. Item 5.1.4, temporary borrowings for the municipality, and item 5.2.1, which are the minutes.
Thank you. There are no delegations except for the one speaking to item 5.1, and we'll have to deal with that later. May I please get a mover and a second to put all separated budget items, consideration consent items on the floor? Moved by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Utley. Oh, thank you. We'll now have the presentation from 5.1 from Julia Bates from Millard Professional Accountants. Julia, are you there? There she is. Okay. Thank you, Julie. Go ahead. You have 10 minutes inclusive of questions.
Yep. So we'll start with Appendix A that was circulated in the a meeting package. It's the independence letter. So I'll just do a brief overview. So this is a requirement by our accounting standards. So we need to be in compliance with our code of professional conduct. And it just states that we as Millards, no partners or staff or management within Millards or are related to or any staff or financial management within the corporation of the city of Brantford. So we're just communicating to you, those charged with governance on the finance committee, that we're not aware of any existing relationships with us as Millards and the city. It also goes through our fees that we had charged for the previous year near the bottom there, and the fees that were charged were according to the RFP that was issued at the beginning of last year. So it gives you a breakdown on the third page of that letter, which is page 8 of 35 on your report, showing the different certifications with driver certification as well as the landfill audit. The only item in that is not part of the RFP was the Reaching Home Canada's Homeless Strategy audit there for $1,106. And the non-audit services are comprised of mostly tax advice, as well as the police services had engaged us to do a little bit of work for them in this past year. So we'll also move on then to Appendix B, which is our engagement letter. So this is pretty similar to what you would have seen last year. Pretty much for verbatim, but it serves as a contract each year between us as the auditors and you as the city and the finance committee. We have received this letter back signed by Joelle, accepting the engagement and all the terms. So this letter just highlights the objectives and the responsibilities as us as auditors, how we identify and assess the risks of material misstatement. We obtain an understanding of the internal controls, and this is what we use to perform our tests and design our tests to ensure that any areas that may be susceptible to some irregularities or judgment or estimates, we are able to do that as well. And overall, we evaluate the accounting policies to ensure that they are reasonable and that any estimates due to accounting estimates, example, the landfill liability and things like that, are reasonable and are consistently calculated from year to year. We also have to conclude on the appropriateness of the management's use of a going concern basis and any of the evidence that we obtain. And then we also evaluate the overall presentation, structure, and content of the consolidated financial statements. It does go into a bit of a little list of what's the responsibilities of management. So they are responsible for preparing the financial statements, as well as designing the internal controls. And they also provide us with access to all the information, unrestricted access to the staff at the city for any of our inquiries, and any information that we do request throughout the audit, just to confirm and do our substantive testing, as well as our analytical results as well. In the Appendix A of this document is a copy of the audit letter or the auditor's report. So this is what you would have seen last year. It is a templated standard letter as far as our reporting goes. And as we did last year, it was no qualifications. We offered a clean opinion on the city for that. We have started the audit fieldwork this year already. It started on Monday. So staff has went over to the city, and from my report from the staff, there's been no issues to date. Everything is going smoothly considering these times that we're in. And I know that the staff over there are on rotational situations with going in, but everything has been going very smoothly. We also use a share file here. So we have a secure portal here at Millard. So all the documentation, if we do have to go into any virtual auditing, as well as just exchanging documents, we use everything through share file as it's encrypted. And that way, no risk through an email of it going A, to the wrong person, or B, someone hacking in with that respect. So further on, some general terms of just on the contract with respect to timelines. We met with management and staff, finance staff, at the end of October. So a timeline has been submitted and we've agreed upon that. So as I mentioned, interim work has already started and we have set deadlines going forward. So we all know when things are due to be given to each other based on those timelines. That will be it for the actual engagement letter. And the third document, which is Appendix C, which was page 17 of 35, is just our audit planning letter. Some of the verbiage in here is just reiterated from the engagement letter. But this letter is to just outline our plan for the upcoming year. It's a two-way communication between us as roles as the auditors, as well as you as the oversight body for that. Our responsibilities, it doesn't go into detail, it just references that to look at the engagement letter, but it does kind of go into a bit of a laundry list of the Finance Committee's responsibilities. So if we were to come across anything unusual or obscure, or we needed to discuss with you, just you as the committee to be available if and when that ever happens. And we've had no issues in the past with respect to that and having to meet outside of our normal meeting times. As well as we meet, this is the planning, as well as we meet at the end to approve the draft financial statements. If there's any known disclosures or any issues with, you think, corporate governance, if there's any potential fraud or illegal acts that you're aware of, please contact me directly and we can discuss and deal with that accordingly. As well as just if we have any inquiries for you, just as an extra source and as part of our audit. We don't anticipate any changes, significant changes anyways in the internal controls. I know that we were talking with finance management with respect to approval of invoices and such, so we've come to an agreement on that. With respect to materiality, so we're approximately using 1% of total expenditures this year, which equals about 2.4 million. So this is an arbitrary auditing number that we come up with. So accumulation of errors or differences in calculations goes on what we call the summary of unadjusted audit differences. And then from there, we discuss with staff and management to see if anything they want to book anything, or if we can leave it on our summary of unadjusted audit differences. And I can report in the past couple years for sure, we have not had anything on that list. So if we come across things, city has been in agreement, or we've been able to satisfy ourselves with how that has been accounted for. Some other changes, obviously the pandemic has had an impact on everything. So we will have some little extra work on our part, just going with respect to the controls and how things were handled and how it has affected the city and its operations, as well as a new city treasurer was appointed during the year as well. And just again, with respect to internal controls, we do get an understanding of those internal controls, but we do not offer opinion on it. This just allows us to design our tests to be able to test the data that's in and make sure that they are following the controls that are in place. And if there happens to be any weaknesses in those controls, we do make recommendations on how to rectify those. And then once again, if there is anything of significant matters that with respect to reporting or any potential risks that you are aware of, I do ask that you contact me directly, and that way we can definitely work through those and get that resolved as soon as possible. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Julie. And I do have some questions from members of the committee. Councilor Martin, you're first up.
I believe I raised my hand to separate an item, not to ask a question here.
Okay, wasn't taken down. I have Councilor Van der Stel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Julie. Page 8, the landfill audit. As I understand it, there's 4 years left on the contract we have with Waste Management Services. So the audit only pertains to what we are receiving and the monies that are coming in at the waste scale there, and any of the recoverables that we get from the revenues that the recoverables that are sent off site, so metals and whatnot. Is that the full extent of what you're auditing year by year, or does it extend beyond that as well?
Oh, the landfill audit refers to the methane gas that he flared with regards to
I
the
see.
loan.
Okay, all right.
So we have to audit that in order if there was any repayments on the loan that are due. So that's what that pertains to.
Strictly, but
Yes.
not anything having to do with the recoverables at the scale house.
No, we would test we would test some of the revenues and the expenses going in within our sample sizes and do analytical procedures, but that is part of the city audit as a whole and not separated out. But that landfill, the one that is separated, is with respect to the loan and the methane gas flares.
Okay, we've seen some reporting on that previously. Okay, thank you
Yes.
very much.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Van der Stel. I see no further hands raised, so I'm going to call the question on 5.11. Oh, Mayor.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. It's not coming through.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm a yes.
I'll look for your hand. You're up, Mayor. You have the floor, Mayor Davis.
Oh, sorry, no. I'm just saying I was having trouble voting, so. But I voted through eScribe now, so.
Okay, that's good.
Item 5.1.1, External Auditor Annual Independence Letter, Engagement Letter, and Audit Plan passes unanimously on a recorded vote. Those voting in favor, Mayor Davis, Councillor Vanderstelt, Councillor Martin, Councillor Utley, and Councillor Carpenter.
Now we move on to the next item that was separated, and that would be 5.1 through promissory note from Brantford Power Incorporated and Brantford Hydro. Financial impact $58,420. And Councillor Martin, you have the floor.
Yeah, just a question through the staff. Does this need to be deferred until we make a decision on what we're doing with respect to these mergers? Or do we need to adjust the term of it so that we can make a change?
I see Brian, our CAO.
Yeah, thank you. I'll answer that if you can through Mr. Chair. We're going to almost take almost two different roads, Councillor Martin. Number one, we're going to renew this as per the terms and conditions we have with the promissory notes. And then the second side is where if the merger goes through, it'll be part of our discussions on the merger. We don't want to, if we defer it, it may defer the agreement we have with Brantford Power. So we want to make sure we stick with that contract. And then if we do the merger participation talks, this will be key in it, and it'll also be privy to whatever we want to do in that area. So if I don't know if I explained that well, but enough, I could.
Good enough.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. So maybe to our CAO, the $58,420 that goes into a capital account, does it not?
Yeah, I'll defer that over to Joelle where the monies go from the proceeds. Joelle?
Joelle?
To you, Mr. Chair, I think this interest on the promissory notes actually does impact the operating budget. It's the dividends that we receive from the utility companies that goes to offset the capital budget.
So are we looking to move this somewhere so it doesn't have an impact on the operating budget if it changes in the future?
Maybe we could clarify that. If you move this this promissory note, you're talking about the promissory note if we go through the merger and the promissory note changes, Councillor Carpenter?
Yeah, or the interest on it changes, because I understand if anything that's could be in flux, we don't like to have in the operating budget, we put it in the capital budget so it doesn't affect the operations of the city or the ratepayers.
Oh, I see. So there's kind of two parts to that question. So if we continue the way we are doing it with at the rate in the current contract, that one stream, that does affect our operating budget, and I'll let Joelle speak to that. I'll answer the second part, which is part of the promissory note discussions. If there is a merger with Energy Plus, that will take that into granted, and we will that'll be part of the discussion where those revenues go, Councillor Carpenter, when we bring that back to the task force and to council.
Okay,
So
thank you. I see any further questions from members of the committee? I see none, then I will call the question.
Item 5.1.3, promissory notes from Brantford Power Incorporated and Brantford Hydro Inc. Carry unanimously on a recorded vote. Those voting in favor, Mayor Davis, Councillor Martin, Councillor Utley, Councillor Carpenter, and noting Councillor Vanderstelt's absence during the time of the vote.
Okay, thank you. There are no resolutions for today's meeting. There are no notices of motions for today's meeting. Members of the committee, any questions of staff related to the mandate of the Finance Committee? Okay, I see no questions. Thank you. The committee will not be proceeding in camera because we have no private confidential items. The meeting for the Finance Committee is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Merry Christmas.
And Merry Christmas, everyone.